All right. Week 2. We're going to be going tonight over system threats and risk in Chapter 2. Due Sunday. Review questions. Quiz for Chapter 2. Research paper topic. And Lab 2, Week 2. You need to bring that CD I gave you last week for this Lab 2, Week 2. Or Lab 1, Week 2. NT Reset. Make sure and bring that with you. Did everybody get a copy of the CD I gave you last Thursday? Handed out last Thursday. Okay, great. If you didn't see me before you leave, that way you'll have it Thursday. As soon as you come to class on Thursday, you'll have a handout along with the NT Reset disc. As soon as we come in, I'll explain how the lab's going to go from start to finish. You work individually on the lab, and the way it's going to work is you'll set an admin password on your computer that's really difficult to crack. We'll talk about difficult passwords to crack. Then we'll perform the lab, which will reset the admin password to null upon restart. And once you get used to this software, it takes about a minute to reset any admin password, regardless of how difficult. And so you keep this in your CD case. I've used it tons over the years. People that have left the company, changed the admin password on a local unit or server, or an admin that's changed admin passwords right the day they left just to mess with stuff. So this one's really been a lifesaver. This lab, there's a reason I put it right at the front is a lot of students are able to use it in their workplace pretty quick, especially if you're in networking or network security. So that's what we're going to do this week. All right, let's go ahead and go over real quick the review questions first for Chapter 2. All I need for that is the questions only, and you're going to put it in here in the Dropbox. And make sure when you submit the questions or when you're working on the questions, do it offline of Eagle, and then paste them into the message if you want to, or you can attach a document if you want to, however you want to. Most students just paste it into the body of the message and submit it. That's fine. I will open up the answers for your review questions 2 weeks after they're due. I'll have a section in the lessons folder called review questions here in about a week that'll have the source answers for the review questions. That way you kind of check if you did miss any. Okay? Then the quiz, 10-question multiple choice. It's untimed. You have up to 3 chances to take it. Highest max score out of the 3. And then finally, the research paper. We went over a little bit this last week, so I won't go over it again. At the bottom of that document in there is all the topics available. All I need from you is choose a topic, type the topic name in the message, your name in the title, submit it. And so those 3 are the actual things you're going to do outside of class by Sunday. The lab we'll do in class, and we'll do every Thursday a lab. Okay, any questions before we get started? Okay, great. Well, let's go ahead and look at the board we're going to be going over tonight, systems and threats, looking at different types of attacks that can hit your network, from software attacks, hardware attacks, virtual services attacks. This last one's probably been the most popular the last couple of years because it's newer. A lot of folks are using, businesses are using virtual applications, virtual services. Some of you might use virtual application type software where you remote into your home computer or work computer or vice versa. So software-based attacks, first, most students have heard of these terminologies. One of the things that hopefully you'll learn this semester is ways to secure your network and personal PC and laptop to where these items aren't an issue as much as they could be. So malicious software is just malware is another term for it. Malware is probably the most popular term today. You hear a lot tossing around. It's just software that enters your computer without your knowledge or consent. It can happen through hyperlinks on webs. It can happen web links. It can happen through installed software, Trojan horse software that you download for free. That's probably the most popular. It's a free game. Somebody downloads it to your computer at home. Unbeknownst to you, it installs a whole bunch of malware in the background. And malware can be like, searching your web history and then giving you pop-up ads to mimic your web history. Does that make sense? So if you're always searching sports sites, they give you pop-up ads on sports memorabilia. Now if you're searching pornography, you're going to get pop-ups on pornography. Okay? And so just so you know, now malware is widely spread and something that's not just annoying, but it can be real damaging to businesses and homes alike. I would say probably the worst culprit is peer-to-peer with malware. And you might have heard of programs in the past like LimeWire. It's still present, but not. There's other ways to get it now besides LimeWire anymore. And other peer-to-peer softwares or services that allow you to share millions of computers upon a service for people to share a searchable index of their computer for folks to download whatever's on their computer, basically, to their computer. So if they've got a file that says, I don't know, give me 3 steps by Leonard Skinner.mp3, and you download it and it's actually an executable that installs malware, oh well. Okay? And so a lot of peer-to-peer softwares today, or file sharing type of softwares, are actually probably the most damaging when it comes to malware. I always tell students, I know music costs money, movies cost money, but it's worth paying it. It really is. Not just, you could really argue the sharing aspect of it. I argue just the malware aspect of it. Even if we could argue legality or people should have the right to share, all that good stuff, all day long. But when it comes right down to it, when it comes to IT, and if you've been in IT any period of time or you're going into this field, you've seen a lot of malware where I'm talking about, where people are doing stuff they shouldn't be doing. And it's generally in the music, movie area, and games. Games is a big one too. Going into sites and downloading so-called free games, or even free pirated software, people say. They got a free pirated software. Tons of malware in that. Okay? And all of these things I'm talking about, you guys are very well aware of, but that's probably the number one way for malware to get into your home network, also into business network. Because say a sales guy goes home, downloads a pirated application, installs it, brings it to work, plugs it in the network, and that software now has malware on it, infects your network. And so happens all the time. 3 primary objectives of malware: to infect your computer system or even network system. Starts on a computer. It can be a Mac, it can be a PC, it can be a Linux device. The one that's hit the most definitely is going to be a PC, but there are malwares out there for Linux. There's malwares out there for Mac devices, phones as well. Concealing the malware's malicious actions is the second. An example would be a game that you have different levels in, and each time you get to a certain level or next level, or say level 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, it fires a new malware. It pops up a thing and says, congratulations, you've now reached level 3. Click here to tell everybody. You click here, you've installed another malware. Okay? So they try to guise it with something really cool or flashy or free is definitely something you got to watch for and tell people nothing's free in life. And so they're wanting something. And they're generally getting it with malware, bringing profit from the actions. Now, I'm a programmer, I've told you, but one of the big software malware devices out there right now is screen scraping. You might have heard of that term maybe. And what it means is these games that folks download for free have a malicious background to where code background to where it will do screen scraping when it sees them go to a secure website. And it can also do key logging. So key logging in junction with screen scraping and then emailing that information to an email address behind the scene every maybe 5-6 milliseconds. And so you can see where you could get damaging information in a small period of time if you have a real popular application that has this malware in the background that no one really can see happening. There's no, nothing pops up on your screen. It doesn't slow your computer down, but in the background, it's gaining profit. There may be bank account information, credit card information, so on and so forth. And the scenario I just talked about, programming-wise, very simple to create. Very simple to create a game with a back-end malware like I just mentioned. And so I'd say a year of experience in programming in any language could teach you how to do that. Put something together like that. And so you can see where this can be very damaging just in the software-based attacks. Next is viruses. This used to be a big one. I'm not saying it's not big anymore, but I don't think it's as big as the first one we just went over, malware. The virus, most users, both home and businesses now understand they need antivirus, they need it updated, need to scan their computer, they need to, maybe even scan their USB drive. They understand all that for the most part. I'm saying general knowledge for the most part. 5 years ago wasn't so, now it is. But a virus still is just as good, or your computer's just prone from viruses as the latest updates that you have on your antivirus. So if you're out of date a month or two, that's a tons of viruses that could be coming in on your computer. There's literally millions of viruses that are morphed and tweaked and changed and renamed over and over again. Very few new ones. A lot of just rehashed, renamed, pushed out into the public over and over again. And some people, conspiracy theorists, think ideally the ones behind this could be the antivirus companies themselves creating these multiplicities of viruses, which makes sense, but I don't know if it's true or not. Probably isn't, but you can see where that could come from. But once a virus infects your computer, it performs two tasks: replicates itself, and then activates some malicious payload. Malicious payload could be everything from deleting files on your computer or server, sending emails to everyone in your address book with that virus attached saying, please open me. They open the attachment and then they're infected with the virus. Cause problems ranging from displaying an annoying message to erasing files, even computer crashing repeatedly. The last one, the newest type of viruses out there, the most dangerous, are those that take time to really do its damage. Upon each restart, it does more and more damage to where eventually your PC's hard drive might be fried, basically, because it's done so much damage. I've seen that happen. To where it's easier just to get a new hard drive, start all over again, than to try to fix the current one. So we have an infected malware message here that has tons of text in it, which I won't read. It's just annoying text. Generally, when you see something like this, without even reading it, you know it's not a legit message without even reading it. There's just so much words in it. And then number two, you'll find out this semester, the grammar. You don't have to be an English scholar, I'm not, but some of the grammar that is in the text can really be a red flag. Misspellings, logic, illogical text, illogical messages. I'll just read the very first bit here. I think I speak, and you can just tell by the third word is lower caps. You know for sure it's not legit. I think I speak for every pot smoker in North America. You can just stop right there. You don't have to go any further. Okay? But this is a real pop-up from a real annoying virus message, and all it was just an annoying message like this that popped up all the time. And so, and just annoyed people. And like I mentioned last week, people are at the point, some folks are at the point where they're just so confused they don't want to touch anything. They don't want to read their email. They don't want to open an email for sure because they might open up a virus, and so list goes on and on. Types of viruses: file infector, resident virus, boot virus, companion virus, and macro virus. The most popular probably is going to be that boot virus. I would say secondary would be the file infector virus. A boot virus means upon every reboot of your computer or server, it reinfects and populates that virus over and over again and replicates it. The file infector means we're passing a letter around or an email around that's every time somebody opens it, it infects that computer with the virus. And the other way that the file infector works is it infects multitude of files beyond the initial file that it was embedded in. An example on the file infector is a virus that its job is over time to rename every file in your computer with a .ico extension, which is an icon file extension. Meaning upon one of the restarts, you go to click on something on your desktop or the start button and it doesn't do anything because it's not a click event. It's just an icon. It's just a picture, thereby rendering your system useless and having to restore it again. And so that's a pretty popular one. Still around, still going out. Metamorphic. This avoids detection by altering how they appear. An example of this is a virus. There's one out, I believe it's 2008, 2009 antivirus. It's a pop-up on web browsers. It does a fake scan, tells the users to click here to install this free antivirus. And when they do, it actually looks like it installs something, puts it in the taskbar. Upon restart, it actually overwrites the original, whatever antivirus you might have, whether it be McAfee, Norton, whatever, with this virus, which it looks like a real, like I said, antivirus scanning program, but it does absolutely nothing but infect your computer with more malware and viruses. And that's a real popular one that people fall for all the time. Polymorphic. This encrypts the content differently every time, to where even if your antivirus were to catch it one time, the next time upon reboot, it might not catch it because it does different things differently. Maybe use different ports, name the file differently each time. Worm, this is fairly popular. I would say next to malware, I'd put worm second, possibly. Virus is third. Worm basically is designed to take advantage of a vulnerability in an application. Basically, a worm will attack security flaws in software or operating systems, which there's tons of them, both in Microsoft, Apple, Linux even. There are security backdoors and flaws. And you can imagine with the billions of lines of code just in any of these operating systems I just mentioned, you're going to have flaws, you're going to have human error. Folks might have programmed things in that was disgruntled just to create this backdoor or create this flaw of security. And worms take advantage of it. A lot of businesses and home users alike are out of date on their updates when it comes to software that they use and maybe operating system. Now, you'll learn my philosophy on updates, but one of the things I do keep updated with Microsoft is that for the most part, the security updates. Things that have to do with security updates, I keep those updated for the most part. Everything else we'll talk more about this semester, but those are definitely critical. Anything has to do with security on your OS. Secondly, software. Most folks believe and understand partly the reason to update your software, or your operating system, I mean, but not software. They just buy the software, install it, and never update anything. They can have security flaws as well. Microsoft Office has had tons of them, just to name one big one that companies use. Now, Worms are different from viruses in that they can travel by themselves. They do not have to be attached to any file, email, document, or process. A worm does not require any user action to begin. Actions that worms have performed: deleting files on computer, allowing computer to be remote controlled by an attacker. One of the examples of a worm was a Microsoft system process called Messenger. That's one of the critical processes within the OS. 4 or 5 years ago, had a critical backdoor to where folks could come in and remote control through that Messenger port that it was using. It's been fixed since then. Now, Trojan Horse is another one on concealing malware. Trojan Horses is a program that advertises to do something good, but behind the scenes it's doing something evil, basically. Okay? This is where the games come in. Now, I'm an old school gamer. Galaga is my speed. I do like some first-person shooter games. Black Ops, I play some of that, but that's about it. But there's tons of millions of people, though, that play these online games that they download. It's just crazy. I mean, I'm trying to, what are some online games you guys can think of that people play? What was it? Online, I'm talking about literally it plays online only. Or you have to download, maybe it's something little too. Counter-Strike? Okay, anything else? Any little game? Let's talk about Facebook games. There's tons of those, right? What are some Facebook games that people play?
Pawn Stars.
What is it?
Pawn Stars.
Pawn Stars, there you go. What's the other one where they have to, like, farm, is it Farmville? That's another annoying one. Okay, Farmville, Pawn Stars, sounds like it might be annoying. Anything that has an annoying name generally is problems. Okay? Generally, not always, but it could be very well. But a Trojan horse, I'm not saying any of these we mentioned, by the way, are Trojan horses, but there's tons of Trojan horse applications out there that are guised as games that people download from these free game sites. And in the background, it's doing something malicious, attacking hidden code behind the scenes, maybe installing a keylogger, a screen scrape type of process I talked about earlier. Next is a rootkit. Rootkit actually is focused mainly on attacking servers and embedding itself in the boot sector of that server as a embedded virus and embedded program, to where it's really hard to detect unless you have software specifically designed to attack and delete that rootkit. And there's tons of them out there. And it's a set of software tools used by an intruder to break into a computer, obtain special privileges to perform unauthorized functions, and then hide all traces when they leave of them ever being there. That's why it's hard to detect. And not only that, it's hard to litigate because it's hard to trace it. Rootkit's goal is to hide the presence of other types of malicious software. Rootkits function by replacing operating system commands with modified versions. One of the ways to tell there's a rootkit on a server is if you start having to type in with a command on a server, you would normally just type in the name. If you have to start typing in the name plus the .extension .exe to run it, you could have a rootkit. You know what I'm talking about? We'll do it this semester, actually. I'll show you. Like for an easy one that you guys might know and might use a lot is a command key. When you hit the start button, go to run, type in cmd, hit enter. You have to start typing in maybe cmd.exe to get it to work. You could have a rootkit. Because one of the rootkits, one of the first things it does is it reassociates file extensions with something totally foreign. That's the first thing it's going to do. The reason it does that is to disarm the system to do what it wants to do. So what I'm talking about is the rootkit will, upon a restart, begin slowly reassociating files. What I mean by reassociating is, say I give you a Word document, I email it to you. If you double click on a Word document or document ends in .doc, what program will it try to open it up with? Generally. Word, right? because Windows associates a .doc with the word. So that's why I talk about disassociation. It takes file extensions like .exe and reassociates it with something that doesn't do anything, possibly. And so that's when you start seeing weird stuff like that, that's when you could have a rootkit. Now, detecting a rootkit can be difficult. Removing a rootkit from an infected computer is extremely difficult. You need to reformat the hard drive and reinstall the operating system. There is what's called a zeroing of a hard drive, and we'll actually use a software towards the end of the semester, a free one, that actually takes the number 0, the 0 bit, and overwrites your hard drive, say 20 times with zeros. Because a normal format does not do that. A normal format will delete certain files, format certain sectors, and leave the rest alone. So you could have resident stuff out there in a normal format that a zeroing out will take care of. Okay? Now, I have seen rootkits, though, even with the zeroing out, that are so embedded that, like I said earlier, you've had to replace a stinking hard drive. It's just replace the hard drive. Forget it. I'm not doing it again. Okay? And because there are some rootkits that also I've seen that have attacked the internal hardware of a server outside of the hard drive, attack the memory of that computer, of that server, or memory modules of that computer. And so, it can be really nasty, these rootkits can. Next is a logic bomb. A logic bomb generally is set by date of some type. A computer program that lies dormant for a while, then maybe a certain date comes up, like 9/11, and something's triggered, malicious activity happens, and extremely difficult to detect because it lays dormant for months or years possibly before anything happens. Privilege escalation, it's a fancy word or words to just give you temporary admin rights, is what it is. Give the user or the hacker or the program, in this case malware, admin rights to do what it is they need to do, that program needs to do. There are certain commands within Windows operating system, Mac, and Linux, if you know the right commands and in the right order, that you could give yourself admin rights for a short period of time if you got in the right section and area to do it. So I just want to read one or two of these. It gives a description, reason, and result. Let's go right to the bottom left. The description here is the CIA, U.S. Central Intelligence Agency, sold a computer program to the Soviet Union to control natural gas pipe with an embedded logic bomb. This really happened. Reasons for the attack. The U.S. was attempting to block Western Europe from importing natural gas from the Soviet Union. The result, the logic bomb went off and caused the Soviet pipeline to explode. That might be a good research topic. Students haven't done that one. It's actually a pretty cool story. There's books even written on that. So that's an example of a logic bomb in real life. Now, types of privilege escalation. When a user with a lower privilege uses privileges of a higher, and again, anytime you hear privilege escalation within the text or any network security books, all it refers to technically is giving you temporary admin rights. Does that make sense? It's just a fancy network term somebody came up with. It's just temporary admin rights to do whatever dirty work that malware program, whatever needs to do. Spam. Everybody loves this. Most businesses have a 97 to 98% of emails that's blocked because of spam, meaning their email server, say Barracuda is a popular one, email filtering server that blocks and filters spam. The average business today, 97 to 98% of their emails coming in inbound are blocked because of spam, meaning a small percentage then is good. That's it. That's a lot of email. It's a lot of junk. And you say, well, how can they stop that? Well, here's the way it works. Marketing firms who are generally behind this, say Cialis, pharmaceuticals are big on this. They will buy a domain or get a free domain, tens of hundreds a day, different ones. They'll switch it up. Barracuda will recognize spam, block that extension, but then the next day the same company sends the same spam out with a different extension, different email address each time. So it's very difficult to keep up with it. Now they do keep up with it because they know this happens, and so they actually have programmers working around the clock, I know Barracuda does, that's constantly updating their DAT files that are pushing it to these Barracuda systems 24/7. Barracuda is not updated once or twice a day. A lot of times you can set them up to be updated as needed, as they do the push outs. But spam is just unsolicited email, stuff you didn't ask for, stuff you didn't sign up for. Sending spam is lucrative. There's companies that will pay millions of dollars to make sure that email of their product gets in folks' email box. Just like junk mail in your box at home, your mailbox at home. It's the same concept. Companies spend millions of dollars to pay marketing firms money to get that envelope in your box. So it's proven that, say they send out 10,000 letters into people's mailboxes at home. Even if they only get a 5% return, it's worth it. It's worth it. Same with email, but it's much cheaper. Instead of sending 10,000, they can send 10 million for the same cost. Spend money, marketing firm to do this, and they get email addresses. You say, where do they get email addresses? Legitly, email addresses can be received from you filling out a form, and unbeknownst to you, it says at the bottom of that form, oh, by the way, to sign up for this service, we can use your email however we want to, and fine print that nobody reads. And so that your email address can literally be sold over and over again by this company that got your email. It could be a simple, thank you form, or you wanted an inquiry on a magazine or whatever the case may be, and everybody's done it before, and you start getting all this junk mail in your inbox. That's where spam comes from. Now, there is a black market as well, like in everything, of email as well. But there are legit companies that get legit emails from you and I who fill out forms online, and we put the little check mark saying, yeah, we don't care if you send us any information. That's where they get all the emails from. And that's where the spam begins. Cost involved, email addresses, equipment and internet connection. The Barracuda device I mentioned is about $5,000 for a small business to purchase. Again, not a lot of money for a small business to filter spam, but it's $5,000 times how many small businesses use it. So that's a lot of money. Barracuda likes it. And there's people that make a living, companies make a living out of spam, blocking spam like Barracuda. Text-based spam messages can easily be trapped by special filters. Image spam is a new one the last couple of years that uses graphical images instead of text to bypass text filter-based spam filtering, to where you get an image in your inbox, recommending the newest drug that's out, and to buy it in Canada, possibly a Canada pharmacy. That's an example. It's a big one. And so it bypasses the text filters because it's a graphic image. Here's an example. Viagra, Xanax, Valium, Cialis, Phentermine, and Ambien. All of this is an image. The whole ad is an image. The subject usually makes absolutely no sense. Okay? That's how generally most spam filters block it, is through the subject. But some of them do make sense, and so that's how they get bypassed through the spam filter. And then the bottom text, you'll notice, is totally no sense. It's a whole bunch of nonsense. It usually takes portions of public domain textbooks and novels, and just paste it in the bottom of the email to make it look like it's a valid email address, because like Barracuda will block an email that has only an image in that email body. That's it. It'll block it. But if it sees this bottom message and the subject line, some spam filters would let it through possibly because of that. Okay? And again, the bottom text is just nonsensical text a lot of times they just throw in there. Other ways that spam is included is GIF layering, word splitting, geometric variants. So here's an example. Instead of one image, it's got 6 images that are lined up when the page finally loads, so it's hard to detect or difficult to detect from some spam filters. Word splitting, it'll actually take and split a word to make it hard to detect, and these are actually images, by the way. Geometric variants, it actually puts like a background type of filter in the background to make it look rough and textured, so like it might be an image, but it actually has text on top of it. So image spam cannot be easily filtered, but it is, like the one I just mentioned, Barracuda, does a fairly good job of blocking it, or any known spam filter will block image spam. To detect image spam, the approach the servers use, like Barracuda, services use like Barracuda, is they ask questions like who sent the message, like if it's from a domain that they have blocked, they just won't accept it. That's generally how they get it. What is it known? What is known about the sender? Where does the user go if he or she responds to the email? And there's actually people whose job is to do all this. So a lot of this you would think would be automated, and it's not. There's people that sit at the cubicles, sit at desks, researching this stuff to find out this information. Is it a valid email company? Is it a valid domain? Is it a company? Is it a real business? What type of business is it? So .abc at abc.com, they're going to investigate it, make sure it's a valid company. If it's not, they're going to block it. What's the nature of the message content? How is the message technically constructed? Spyware. Spyware is junk that fills in computers on a daily basis, and it does impose your privacy and security both. Most people think it's just privacy or it's annoying, spyware is, but it has some security ramifications to it. The Anti-Spyware Coalition defines spyware as technologies that are deployed without the user's consent and impair the user's overall control. Use of their system resources includes what programs are installed on their computer. It can collect, use, and distribute personal and sensitive information, like bank account information, credit card information. It'll search your computer for files like confidential, sales, bank account, things of that nature, receipts. Material changes that affect their user experience, privacy, and also security settings can be affected by multiple spyware. There is a program that I use and I've used for a few years. It's antispyware.com and freeantispyware.com, and it's a pretty good software that pretty much rids your computer. Superantispyware.com, I'm sorry, that I'll write on the board that I recommend for just spyware stuff. And it's free. They do have a paid version. It's a pretty good one. Spyware has 2 characteristics. Creators are motivated by profit, whether it be through pop-ups, ads, emails. It's very widespread even today. Although attackers use several different spyware tools, the 2 most common are adware and keyloggers. The most dangerous is definitely going to be the keyloggers that You say, how did they get a keylogger installed on my computer unless I install it? Just the example I gave you earlier of the game that has different levels that you can attain. You get to a certain level, it says, hey, you've won this level, type your name in, hit submit to put you on the board for everybody to see. When you hit submit, you install a keylogger. And I've even seen it where they actually say in the fine print, you're installing the keylogger. But people don't read it. Because it's a little checkbox that says if you want to read the fine print, check here. It'll bring you to a web page to read it, which is like 20 pages long. And it's somewhere in that 20 pages tells you about a keylogger. And nobody reads it. And so, but it installs it, and they've taken it to court, what I've just mentioned to court, and the judges have said, yes, I know it's in writing, but are you trying to deceive the users from where it's located and how it's hidden in the page for them to find it? And they've proven that they have. A lot of companies have done that. And so they had to throw, been awarded claims and been sued, some of these companies that have this type of thing in the background. So slow computer performance, system instability, new browser toolbars. That's a big one. If you see a new browser toolbar in your Internet Explorer, Firefox, that's generally a telltale sign you have some type of malware that's been installed. If you don't know what it's for, what it's about. New shortcuts on your desktop. Hijacked homepage. This is unauthorized change in your default homepage on a web browser at work, where it says you've been hacked by so-and-so. And it doesn't just happen to large companies, this also happens to small companies. Yes?
I was just fixing a customer's computer yesterday, and they had a malware on there that would redirect every, like, say you were to only Google search something,
Right.
and then you would click on the search or wherever, Wikipedia or anywhere.
Right.
It would redirect it to whatever post the website.
Right.
It was only from Google. I thought that was really weird. I suppose that wasn't up there. I don't know if that's becoming more popular.
Yeah, in fact, we do a lab this semester to where we set up every computer in here to when you go to Facebook, you actually go to a computer in the room that you don't know about that actually looks just like Facebook, but it's gathering everybody's username, password. And within seconds, you've got everybody's account information. Doing a man-in-the-middle attack. Yep. And we use a couple software to do that, and pre-packaged it to where it's easy to do the lab, even though it wasn't easy to put together. The lab's easy to do, to where it shows you how dangerous it can be to do something like you just mentioned. And you can use any website. It could be Facebook, Google.com, whatever. When the users actually type in information, they're being rerouted through a man-in-the-middle computer somewhere on that premise, or it could be in another country on a server somewhere. Yeah.
Isn't there something like that too? Like I've noticed on social media where you try to go to like a legit website.
Right.
Say congratulations, you have.
Won something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like it's legitimate address, but it tells you that you want something and it says it's from that company.
Exactly. Yep. That's exactly what it is. It could be a malware rerouting you, as he mentioned. Maybe not a full man-in-the-middle type of attack, but it's rerouting to capture the user's attention, to get them to do something, click on something, to install some software of some type. Yeah, that's a good point. The hijack homepage is big. A lot of hackers, black hat hackers, have websites to where they say, okay, how many websites can we deface this week? And then they have a competition, and they go by code names, and they go in there and see by code name how many sites that these people have defaced. From, like, again, the larger the better for them, or more notoriety, but it doesn't really matter. It's real about numbers, how many they can go in and deface. And so we'll actually show how that's done this semester in a web environment. And then also increased pop-ups. This isn't so much around anymore, but I think some people still have it. Not as popular, but I have seen it around recently. It's generally people that use the online games a lot. They have some free software they downloaded possibly that they don't know what it was, but it was something free. Generally where you're going to see the pop-ups happen. They're generally mostly harmless and they're annoying, but they can slow your computer down and cause, just general annoyance for the user. Okay, let's talk about keylogger real quick. Keylogger used to be, it originated from floppy disk. You put a floppy disk in a computer, it would install a keylogger file to log the keystrokes of that computer and then store it on a floppy disk. And then the hacker would take the floppy disk out of the computer and then go about their way to get their information. That's how it first started years ago. Some of you have never used a floppy, probably. Okay? Now it's on email, keyloggers through email, but the number one way keyloggers are installed on computers today is through online games and the free games I talked about earlier. That's the number one way folks get keyloggers, and you really cannot detect a keylogger through most antivirus softwares, and even some malware, anti-malware software sometimes get bypassed. Especially if the keylogger software is a homemade brew software that's not real popular, those are the ones that really do the most damage. Okay? Because the big name companies, antivirus, anti-malware, spyware companies aren't going to know about it. And really some of the ways they can only detect it is through the name of the executable file. Does that make sense? And so they might, an example would be being creative with the name as well. I don't know if I shared this with you guys last week, but I'll share it with you again if I did. If I did, I apologize. But I teach high school computer class, and I think I might have mentioned this to you about creating software that blocks students from running. At that time, it was Ages of Empire was a big one. AOE.exe was a big one, right? Students learn real quick, though. They could rename it to Notepad.exe. Done. Easy breezy. That took me about 5 minutes to figure out. Okay? But one of the things they couldn't do was rename the title of AOE within the application. They'd have to get in the code to do that and then repurpose it. They weren't, they were smart, but they weren't intelligent enough programming-wise to do it yet. A number of them got there, but anyway, the reason I mention that is a lot of these keyloggers will create a name that is very close to a Windows service name. Like a real popular one within Windows that runs a lot is SVC host or SV host. You'll see it all the time in Windows XP 7 if you do a control delete, the task manager. It just runs every time Windows does anything, basically. It starts that service up. Well, they'll create a keylogger maybe called SVC host with 2 S's on the end, or SVC hoster. Seen that one before. And it's so close to the service file, the scanners on the computer that would normally block stuff like that kind of back off a little bit. That could be a system file. It's too close to the name of SVC host or SV host. Make sense? So a lot of them do that. And so I've caught keyloggers on people's computers just by doing a simple control delete, going into the task manager, looking at every one of them, and if I don't know what it is, I'll Google the name. I'll Google the executable. You'll find if it's a valid one or not. If it's not a valid one, doesn't need it. Delete it. Get rid of it for the most part. And so Google is your friend when it comes to stuff like that. So keyloggers definitely around still. It does capture the user's keystrokes, collects them and saves them as text. And generally it's going to happen no longer with a device of some type. It can this way, but generally it's through a website, web app, or that free downloadable program. Here's old school keylogging. That's actually showing a PS port, serial port, which most of you don't even have on your computers anymore. So, okay, we've talked about that. Yeah, this is a free download actually. You can actually Google keylogger and play with them. There's tons of them out there. Just be real careful. In fact, we go over keylog hacking, give you some resources where I usually give you guys all the programs because they're good programs. They're not, have malware in them. Some of the stuff you download from the web, it says it's a keylogger, but it might actually be chock full of junk. So you don't want that. But this is just an example of a keylogger. It says a person's email address they entered in. It says enter, password, enter, address or message, whatever, enter. Pretty simple. I'm going to end on these two, botnets and zombie. A botnet is been around a while. This is when hundreds or thousands of computers get together and form a network of bots, is what it's called. There's actually really good services for this, though, really good reasons to use this sometimes when it comes to research and development. I've seen to where, like in China, and there's a place in Japan, we did it here one semester where we stringed together all the computers and used all the resources of a hard drive memory to do computation of some type. So there are purposes for bots, all right? But there are also evil bots, the bots that actually do evil stuff like, propagate taking down a network, or propagate taking down a whole segment of a country's network. There's been bots that do that. And basically what it is once it gets installed on a computer, it becomes in control of that attacker or client. And it can use its resources at any time. It's kind of like taking a VNC remote app, a client, installing it on every computer and being able to do whatever you want to, basically. Now granted, bots are usually uniquely designed for one purpose, but that's a general overview of what a bot does, okay? Zombie is an infected computer with a program that will allow the attacker to remotely control it through some type of IRC chat. It could be through a what's called a bot herder, which actually will take and this is used a lot in Facebook. Apps that people download sometimes will have what's called a bot herder, can create a zombie backdoor into that Facebook account. Maybe even have on that a keylogger, and a person wonders why 2 days later they can't get into their Facebook account. Somebody else has gotten into their account, changed the password, and maybe done a whole bunch of junk to it just to deface it. And you'll see that a lot of times in zombies. Zombies aren't around as much anymore, as the botnets actually are pretty popular still. Still a lot of them around. And botnets actually, again, I mentioned earlier, there's some companies, science consortiums and things like that, that create little clients for you to download, and then they use your computer's resources during off hours for computation purposes. You might have heard of that possibly, I don't know. But that's a pretty popular and legit way to share your resources. Like some universities have apps like that. So, recap, spamming, malware, attacking IRC. Really, anytime you hear the IRC, some of you maybe never heard of an IRC. When I was, I'd say 5 years ago, IRCs were real popular. They're still around. A lot of hackers still use them, but they're not as popular in the general stream. Most end users use, consumers use their phone to text message, right? Because most consumers don't even use AOL Instant Messenger or, that used to be real popular, or any MSMS. Nobody uses that anymore, right? Everybody uses their phone. So this is what I think is going to happen, and I'll end with this, with everything we're talking about. Most all of your phones now, regardless of what the OS, is actually a computer. It really is. And they talked about this in the mobile world for a while, as far as the stuff hitting. It's already hitting. It is. It's already hitting. It's what we're talking about tonight with malware, viruses. It is hitting mobile phones. It's not being advertised, but it is hitting mobile phones. Because guess what? It's an operating system that has programs that outside programmers develop. So guess what's going to happen? Bad stuff. Okay? And so now, granted, the phones that tie stuff down tightly, meaning really guard their apps fairly tightly, like Apple for sure, but even some of the Droids are pretty tight on some of their apps, but there's some Droid phones that are pretty wide open too. But regardless of what phone you have, big term today, jailbreaking them. They could, if it was tied down of whatever type by the provider, they could jailbreak that phone and then get whatever apps they want. So I think the next big move in IT with security is going to be with phones, mobile devices. And not just phones, iPads, the Kindles, whatever you can think of as a mobile device. Those are going to be the next target. Whoever the biggest is, and we all know who those are going to be the targets for the attacks. And the reason for that is the black hat hackers always want to attack the largest entity in the world of technology, whatever that might be. It doesn't matter what it is. For name recognition alone and for competition. And yes, even, it might begin with just education, but it snowballs from there, okay? So that's, in IT, you're going to see openings and in fact, it's already started. Companies are hiring ITs, professionals in network and security, uniquely geared towards mobile devices and mobile security. Because if you think about it, forget about malware, viruses, keyloggers. Just think about for a second remoting. All of your phones now can be used, for the most part, to remote in to anything, just as a PC or a laptop or PC could, right? And so if that's the case, there's going to be security ramifications just because of that. And so I'll leave you with that to think about that and to chew on that a little bit. Thursday, bring your CD. When you come to class, you'll have a handout as well on NT Reset, and we are done. If you have any questions, come see me on anything that's due this week or anything we're going over.